What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you guys some more Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous content, but more specifically, the Beta Phase 2 update. So if you're unaware, the Phase 2 of the beta obviously just dropped, which is a massive update that brought a lot of changes, and the purpose of this video is simply covering them and showing them off a little bit. Now, after this video, I'll be going into things like the new racial archetypes, as well as just the new archetypes in general, and the new prestige classes that were added, more in-depth like I've done previously for all the other classes. Now, we do have some big news right off the bat in terms of release date. So September 2nd is officially the release date for Wrath of the Righteous, which is a tiny bit pushed back from their original goal of summer, but seeing as summer could have meant up until like August, that's really not that much longer anyway, and we never had a formalized date until now, so always good stuff there. Showing off some of the new stuff. So first of all, they basically reworked the UI, and I don't mean it's brand new, but they made a lot of just subtle changes that make it just a lot better in general. The biggest difference is probably in character creation. So for starters, when you bring it up, you see all these pre-generated characters you could choose from. Now this was always a thing. However, they added this chart kind of showing what each character is supposed to be good at, which I think is really going to be helpful for new players. They also made new portraits for Wrath of the Righteous, and they separated them by the portraits that were in Kingmaker and the ones that were new for Wrath of the Righteous, which I thought was a nice touch. They added the new archetypes and prestige classes that I mentioned. The new prestige classes are the Lore Master as well as the Winter Witch, and some of the archetypes are even locked to a race and a class. So for instance, Kitsune sorcerers have their own specific archetype that they could choose for sorcerer if they wanted to. So things like that we'll be covering. They added in a lot of the character customization, which is nice. It's still fairly basic because this is an isometric game, so you're not going to be super close on their face most of the time anyway. But they did add a lot of those character customization options to the game, so your character actually feels like your own character now. And on that note, they've actually added in a ton of new models for not only the companion characters that had unique art, but as well as some of the boss enemies. Now, these new models are probably the coolest part, in my opinion, of a large visual update. They added in a ton of art just throughout the game that was missing, or just generic placeholder stuff. But the ones that we'll see the most often are for our companions. For instance, our companion Windoog, who is supposed to have like spider legs out of her back, you can now actually see those in game. Characters like Woljif no longer have a generic tiefling placeholder model. And again, as I mentioned, several bosses actually have unique art now as well. They've also added some new music, but more importantly, to most people I imagine, they actually added in a ton of voice acting. Now, I want to mention that not the entire game is voice acted. However, they did add a lot of voice acting to major scenes, so you get to hear that here.
Rise, warriors. Today is a day of sorrow and pride.
So you can kind of see there where we kind of get some voice acting. Again, it seems to be in most major scenes, but there are portions of the game where it is still just text. We also get more diverse weather effects now, meaning that we might see it pouring rain, or it might be a light drizzle, or other various weather effects you might run into out in the world, but those will happen dynamically. Our companion Dayran's romance was added in, and an exciting update for people, we now actually have the dinosaurs in game. From what I see, we get access to a Velociraptor or a Triceratops, so very excited for our characters that will be using companions. Now keep in mind, not every class gets access to the dinosaurs. You basically have to have a class that gets to pick from the whole list of companions. And moreover, like all the regular animal companions, they do actually grow in size, usually around level 7. So they will move up a size class, so keep that in mind. We also got an update to our Crusade system UI. So if you're unaware, in Wrath of the Righteous, we will be commanding the 5th Crusade, in which case we'll actually be commanding forces that take place in a sort of might and magic sort of battle style. And it was fairly bare bones, but they've kind of overhauled the art and the look and the feel of that to be definitely closer to release. I think it feels pretty good now. The footage you see here is from like literally the first battle, so it's still a little basic as far as troops go, but you'll get access to a ton of new units and everything, and overall it just feels a lot better there. They also added in Finian. I haven't found him just yet, but Finian will be a sort of mini companion who is actually a weapon that you can use. He will take the form of any weapon you want, apparently, which will be incredibly useful for finding a specific type of weapon you want for your build, which is often a problem in Pathfinder, especially the games where the drops are fairly set. So having a very good specific weapon type in a game that has a bunch of feats revolving around specific weapon types is very important, and I think Finian really helps fill the gaps there. Now they also added dismemberment. This is a little hard to get footage of, but basically every once in a while when you kill enemies, heads will literally roll now, which is always fun. And some little generic updates here and there, such as, for instance, now when you go to pick a lock, you will have the option of just bashing containers open. You can't do this with doors, but you can bash containers open. Like a lot of games, you run the risk of breaking the items inside it, or you can now click a UI option to lockpick or break it. Moreover, they've added tools to the game, so you can pick up like lockpick kits that will add plus, I believe 5 was the base increase from these items that will help you then meet the lockpick difficulty check. And I also wanted to mention that I saw some very unique traps in-game for the first time. So in an area that I've been to many times, they now have traps where the trigger for the trap is actually a ways away from the trap, meaning you can't disarm the trap from the actual trap. You have to go to the trigger, if you will, plate to disarm it, which, while not exactly an amazing change, I think does add some variety to the traps nonetheless. Now, beyond that, there are a ton of bug fixes. I actually see some things I personally reported fixed, which was always nice to see. But I will post a link to the full patch notes down below if you're more curious about like specific fixes and crashes and that type of stuff. But there was a lot of that, as this is a beta. But as that's not really content, I'm not really going to cover it too much in this particular video. So there you go, guys. Just kind of an update of the changes you can see in Phase 2 of our beta here. Going forward, the videos I want to make are about the class archetypes that were added, the 2 prestige classes that were added in, as well as the mini companion Finian. As soon as I find him, I can make a video about that whole situation, which will be cool, and kind of anything I can think of from there. But in the meantime, I certainly hope you enjoyed this video, you found it informative. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. Maybe consider joining the channel as a member, or even pick something up from my merch shop. That would be helpful as well. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.